Hello, folks. Welcome to the Genuinely Interested podcast. I'm your host, Roy Bensby. This podcast is an opportunity for me to speak with some of the most interesting people I know, either with amazing talents or achievements or unbelievable life stories or just invaluable insights into areas which they have dedicated their lives to studying. I sit down with these amazing individuals from across the planet and I try to ask them questions that will hopefully help you, the listener, extract something valuable or learn something new or just hopefully get inspired by. You can find all the episodes for the podcast on all the major podcasting platforms such as iTunes, Spotify, Google, Overcast, iHeartRadio, literally all of them. It's there. If you love the show, if it adds value to your life in any way, shape, or form, please leave reviews on iTunes. It really helps grow the podcast. It puts it up there so more people can see it. You can also find all the episodes and everything else, all the information that's updated regularly on the website, which is roybensv.com, roybentzvi.com, and you can sign up for updates as well. Also been updating the YouTube channel, so I've been uploading old episodes pretty much on a daily basis, so you can find it there. And in the future, I hope to make video podcasting as well. If that's something you guys want to check out and are interested in, please shoot me email. I'd love to hear from you. And also make sure to check out the social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter. I post there daily. And lastly, if you guys want to support and help grow the podcast, please go to Buy Me a Coffee or Anchor or Patreon. It is an endeavor to grow this podcast and make it what it should be. And it takes a village. So I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. I see that there are literally listeners from all over the world in each and every country. So thank you to everyone and on to the show. All right, guys, buckle your seatbelts. This is going to be a fun, wild ride. This week, I have Marilyn York. She is a family attorney that focuses specifically on men. She's Nevada's only men's rights family law firm. And she is just a tornado that rips through everything and anything in its way. She is unapologetic and very outspoken about the value of having fathers in the home and the horrible impact on children when fathers are absent, which is a duh type of thing, right? Like that you would think that a two-parent household is obviously better than a one-parent household, but for some reason, political or other, it has become a little bit controversial to say that. So she has a very successful viral video, a TED Talk that I think it's hit already like 5 million views that came out last year. So the topic is out there. She's speaking about it. She's making sure people are hearing it. And hopefully she's changing hearts and minds in the process. It was a pleasure having her on the podcast, covering all these different topics about why men are underrepresented in family court, why they do not have any leverage when it comes to family court, and why a normal guy that doesn't have any criminal history, doesn't have any substance abuse, violence, anything, a regular guy cannot get custody of his children, and why women are wildly favored 99.9% of the time to receive custody of the kids, even if they do have substance abuse issues or whatever it is. It is a wildly skewed system in favor of women right now. And she is tackling it. She takes only men. She represents only men. I think about 95 to 99% of her cases, she represents men. And no one else wants to do this job. It is controversial for some reason. If it was a woman representing women or a man representing only women, wouldn't be controversial. But for some reason, what she's doing, she's getting backlash for. I don't understand why. I think what she's doing is amazing. I think she was great. I love how she tackles everything with humor, especially these serious topics that no one wants to approach. She approaches it with self-deprecating humor, with just humor in general. She was great. So I had a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do it again in the future. We said we would because we could talk for another 3-4 hours. All right, guys, so let's jump right into it. Without further ado, here is this week's guest, Marilyn York. Enjoy the show, friends.
the Genuinely Interested Podcast.
Hey, Marilyn.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I've I've been following you for a while, and I love everything about it. I love how refreshing it is to hear someone speak their mind without fear of consequence. And there's a few people that are speaking in different areas, and I try to follow them all.
Uh-oh.
And you're one of them. So thanks for coming on today.
Well, thank you. I don't have a filter. It's maybe a form of Tourette syndrome, even. Who knows? But
Yeah,
it's working for me. So why mess with it? It's easier than trying to be something you're not. That's for sure.
100% authenticity is key.
I have to do that in court. I have to filter in court. That's enough. That's painful enough.
Because you have to filter so much in court. Once you leave, you're like, bah, 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 bah.
It's true. Like, unleash the fury.
It's my time.
I always get mad in court if we like show an emotion and the judge reprimands us. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Was I human? I'm sorry, Your Honor. I didn't mean to make a face.
So
I'll just get back into robot mode.
that's something I've always wondered because we spend our whole lives watching court in shows, in movies, and I always wonder how accurate that is. Is it mostly theater, or like when it's in real life, it's much more by the rules, by the facts, and it's not as much theater as it is portrayed in the movies.
So it's boring in real life compared to TV, but there are TV moments in every case that are beautiful, but you have to sit through 2 hours of dribble to get there. I find it interesting because I think and their quirks are really interesting. So for me, like watching people in court is super interesting and different. And there's a ton of theatrics that are unnecessary and ridiculous. Like I have a few opposing counsels. I'm like, is that an objection, Your Honor, or the sprinkler? I don't know what he's doing over there. Like, and I just say that because we only appear in front of judges in family court. We don't have jury trials. So we get overly comfortable with the judge because we see them so often and we believe and know they can filter stuff differently than a jury. And so we just get stupid all the time. We get tired and we're there too often and it's super emotional. And so it's kind of more interesting in family court because we have less formality about us and we act like our stupid selves more often. And depending on the judge, like I have certain judges that totally tolerate my antics.
Yeah.
And so I'm just an immature idiot in there. And I'm always like throwing a fit or, I've been pregnant 3 times in court. And so those are their own animal where every time I stood up, I was going to pee my pants. And the judge is like, just don't stand, Miss York, please, God, stay in your chair. Or I'd like eat a sandwich in court because I'm like, I'm going to throw up. I'm pregnant. I have to eat a sandwich. And the court's like, fine, but please swallow before you object because I have no idea what you just said. I'm like, it's peanut butter. It's peanut butter stuck to the roof of my mouth. Like there's so many funny moments, way funnier than TV because they act like it's so formal and it is, but it's not for us because family law does a lot of informal hearings where we try to settle and we're like having a much more casual conversation. So those can be really funny and candid compared to like the formality of a jury trial where everybody's scared of appeal all the time. We have a lot of off the record conversations in family court. Like I had an attorney that was interrupting me over and over. And I said, shut the F word up because I lost my temper. And he's like, Your Honor. And she goes, shut the F up, Joel. Like she was just like so sick of him too. And I'm like, beautiful. Yeah, burn. And now we do Zoom. And so the judges, when they get pissed at us, they mute us. Like, and we're just back there like all animated. And then if you get in real trouble, they black your screen.
Wow.
And I'm like, which I have not had either done to me, shockingly. But the person I just spoke of has had both done. And I'll text him in the background like, sucker, you just got blacked and muted. So it's really funny that way because we all know each other. So we just give each other crap all the time. Like I said, like in text during the hearing, I'm like, burn, you just ate crap.
You know what's funny is that when you describe that to me, just because there's been like a standard of what movies and shows portray of, if I were to watch a movie or a show, right, portraying what, I would be like, that's so stupid. That's not how I've never even been in court, and I'd be like, no. That's so stupid. That's not how it is. Like all the other movies I've seen have never done that, and then the reality is completely different.
I know. And like the judges know me personally because Reno's big, but not like we have a 500,000, is our population in the county. And then, outside is about 800,000, which seems like a lot, but those judges know me well. So I'll be like, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I was up all night with this baby. I have somebody's baby. And he's like, did someone call CPS? Like, you have a kid? I'm all, I birthed kids. He's like, yeah, but nobody put them in your home. Like, they'll just like bag on you. And you're like, oh, come on. Just it's funny. And like we're really familiar with each other. And so it makes it better and worse. So there is a cool factor that I wish they would do on TV because unfortunately our clients get pissed sometimes because they're like, oh, cool, you're friends with the judge that just screwed me.
Yeah.
Or you're high-fiving opposing counsel because you guys went and played golf together. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't mean that we can't yell at each other in court. It doesn't affect my ability to hate him here.
Are there judges where or at least you think they see you, they're like, oh no, not Marilyn again?
I think they'll say it out loud, but yes, although we do practice a really high level, like we're always prepared, we're honest, even if they get annoyed by my like unprofessional antics. I'm careful in those courts. There are certain courts where I'm like, don't do your bullshit, Marilyn. They can't. Yeah. I get like diarrhea when I get near their courtroom because I'm like, oh my God, they're so uptight. I have to try. And I have certain associates in the office that are more formal than myself. So I generally will send them to the anal courts because I'm like, I don't even want to be there. It literally makes my job worse.
I love that anal courts.
Yeah, I'm like, my old associate was like so prim and proper and she would just go to all those. And now she is a judge. Perfect.
Wow.
So yeah. So, but I'm like, I prefer the judges that let me just be a little bit of an idiot. And they're more candid with me too. They're like, your client is a liar. I'm like, okay, but is he a bad dad? Like liar, bad dad. Like I just prefer it. That's my style.
And that's a good segue to maybe give a short, or not as short as long as you want, actually, introduction as to who you are. Maybe just the listeners can get a little bit of a better feel as to why I brought you on today.
So I am what we call a men's rights divorce attorney. I represent men predominantly in family law cases. We seek only male clientele, but we do take females by referral. So typically women we know. So about 10% of our practice is females. Oftentimes we get females that are in the male role in the marriage, the breadwinners. And so that's an easy translation for us. I have 11 female employees. I've been doing this since 2001. I opened my firm, so quite a while now. And we specialize in representing men for a very specific reason. That is that men are the underdogs in family court. That still remains to be true. There is a huge international epidemic besides the pandemic. There is an epidemic of fatherlessness, and it has a catastrophic effect on the children that are being brought up without fathers in their lives. And while the while the laws are improving, and they are in the West Coast, I can speak to specifically, I'm licensed in California and Nevada. The instance of fatherlessness is actually continuing to increase. It's not improving with the laws, which I don't understand exactly why. I just know it's a huge problem. And so I've kind of taken it upon myself to educate on a more, large scale. I did a Tedx speech just last year in February. Actually, it's been a year and it just came out, I think, on video in March or April, and on fatherlessness. And that one is resonating with people. They're still watching it. And I'm like, lucky timing, because I literally gave it to a crowd of 1,800 people on February 29th. And then the world shut down like 2 weeks later. And so I was like, I guess they're bored. They're sitting at home. Like, I guess we'll watch this clown. But it's really good for the cause. About 4.7 million people have watched it so far. And I've been contacted by huge amounts of people internationally and learned how sad the reality is in other countries. I was aware of the plight in America for sure. And like I said, in my practice, but I had no idea. Like, just to give you the most extreme example, a father in Japan who is American, his wife is American, he's there for business, ended up going through a divorce in Japan. He has one daughter. She's, roughly 7. He reached out to me and told me he just finished a long custody battle and was awarded his visitation. Are you ready? He was awarded 1 weekend a year.
A year?
In Japan. A year. They literally told him that's enough. You'll see your daughter once a year for the weekend.
Why?
And he's devastated. I don't know. They said that's all the father's needed for. It's so antiquated. It's so untrue. And I was appalled. And he was like, help, what can you do? I'm like, I can't do anything. Move back to the US. But he couldn't at the moment because of the pandemic. He was completely restricted. And if he does, she's not coming back. Not with that ruling. She'll stay in Japan forever. And then he'll miss his weekend. So it's catastrophic. And numerous of countries have, given those sort of rulings. I'm being told by individuals reaching out to me. And so I consider us cutting edge in America as far as valuing fathers. And that's wonderful. But we literally have somewhere between 8 and 13 million kids growing up in America right now with no dads. And by no dads, I mean less than every other weekend or every other weekend. Even every other weekend visitation, which was kind of our standard for a long time, is not enough contact to skew the statistical data out there as far as children not doing well. And the statistics are horrific. I mean, like 200% more likely to commit suicide, be victims of murder, teen pregnancies, drug use, being in a mental institution, the worst of the worst, high school dropouts, graduation rates, everything is impacted by fathers, everything. And that's not to say mothers aren't important, because I want to make sure I make that point. People are always like, oh, you don't care about moms. No, I do. But luckily, the statistics aren't showing on motherlessness because it's not as predominant. It's not a huge epidemic. I am certain that mothers are crucial to children's upbringing too, but it's not the epidemic that we're seeing with fatherlessness. We're saying kids need both. We're not saying kids don't need moms. We're saying both.
There's like 27 different questions popping up in my head while you were talking.
Yeah.
But if there was a woman representing, that decided to only represent women, right? That would not be controversial. And people would probably even applaud her. Wow, that's so amazing. Women's power. You're uplifting, you're empowering, the whole spiel. We hear it all the time.
Looking out for your own.
Yeah. But when there is a woman like yourself who is decided to represent men, that becomes controversial. Why?
I mean, sadly, it might be true for men representing men too. I think that people see men as the dominant sex, and I believe that's a true statement in some arenas. And so they feel like I'm a gender traitor. Like, why would I help my enemy? I mean, women sometimes, sadly, in society view men as the enemy, particularly to women. And so they think, like I said, that I hate women and I'm trying to take kids from great moms and give them to crappy dads. I'm like, oh yeah, totally. They're just wrong. Like, modern feminism should be, I'm allowed to do whatever I want and help any underdog, any underrepresented, population for any reason. But this is particularly to help kids, which should be a good cause. And a lot of women see that. I don't get, I think smart women see that, but there's a lot of women, including like a doctor who reached out to me on LinkedIn to tell me that I'm like the devil because her dad was a horrible human. And I was like, I'm sorry your dad was a horrible human, but God bless your mom because you went to med school. So she obviously beat all the statistics except bitter woman. You're number one on that list, honey. And when you go through med school and you get out and you haven't figured out that dads are important, then you missed a huge part of med school, because that is a medical truth. I'm sorry to say. And the absence of your dad sucks. Like, you overcame it. I'm sorry, but like, don't yell at me. There's great dads that get deprived. Maybe her dad's a good human and she's just never even met him and just decided whatever her mom told her is true. That's the saddest reality. I see that all the time. And maybe I'm wrong, but like, to reach out to me and scream at me through LinkedIn, I was like, you really made your point. But I was nice. I try to disarm them and just validate their hurt, because that's where it comes from. I'm not trying to begrudge her success or say her dad's a great dude. There's a lot of crap dads. There's a lot of crap moms that get custody.
There's a lot of crap people, humans. And that's the thing. You try people in general. There's good people and there's bad people. And that's super subjective. I mean, what's bad has become... silence is violence. It's like, it just like, you cannot be pure enough by some standards, which is, sure, it is what it is. I'm hoping that's...
Then you're a hypocrite. Yeah. Any extreme, it's like easy to find hypocrisy in the perfect people. Yeah. I'm like, oh God. Yeah. It's true. But those people have sex. I mean, everyone has sex and everyone makes babies, whether we like it or not. And I feel like meth is the perfect drug to help people with infertility, because I've never heard of someone on meth not breeding. I'm like, it's only us like old rich ladies that can't get fertile. So you're like, go get a meth surrogate. They don't have trouble getting pregnant. They make like 5 kids in 2 years.
Just maybe meth is the answer. Maybe instead of doing all these IVFs and just spending months in hormone treatment, meth. It's cheap. It's available.
I feel like Russia's the place to try that. I just, I feel like America's not ready to do that experiment in the medical field, but I feel like other countries might be willing. Just an idea.
China.
Yeah, China. They're not afraid to discard babies. They're like, and straight to hell.
So, and this is I love these segues that you do for me. It's natural.
Just trying.
So no, as far as just being unapologetic, right? I mean, so like you said, I'm assuming for the most part you did not have too much backlash for your TED Talk and all your other.
None for the well. Let me
Okay,
rephrase. I didn't look at the comments. I've learned
I'm
I'm a
sure they
fake
are there.
celebrity. There are like 1,000 negatives, but 50,000
Yeah,
positives. I read none of them because the extreme positives are as creepy. Frankly, anyone that's a fake celebrity understands that. You're like, why are they talking about me like we're
yeah,
best friends?
yeah.
It's weird.
Well,
I don't need another marriage proposal with a weird penis pic and like a stock portfolio. I'm like, oh, it's awkward, but can I get a point of reference, a Butterfinger or something in it? I don't know what I'm looking at. So yeah,
bananas for
but
reference.
I have huge backlash from my jerky commercials, which is fine. I mean, they're sarcastic, and so they ask for trouble. And then I went on Daniel Tosh's show twice, and so when the Daniel Tosh episode, the big one I was on, airs, I get international love and hate mail. It turns out Ukrainian and Russian women, I am their
Oh
people,
yeah,
which I consider a compliment. Australian women hate me. I'm the devil to Australian women. I'm like, it's
that's a
fine. I don't know why. I mean, just that's the pattern when the Daniel Tosh airs. I'm like, why are you guys watching Tosh if you're sensitive? I hope you send him hate mail, not just me. My God, he's just as bad as I am. So, and it is Comedy Central. Feel free to have a sense of
no
humor.
comedy is well, comedy is a very interesting point right now because comedy for a long time has kind of been the bearer of truth, right? Like the reason why things are funny a lot of times is because they are true. And they hit a nerve. You're like, oh, that's so true. And you'll turn
Yeah.
to the person next to you and they're laughing as well. And you're like, you're connecting in that moment because you know, like what that comedian just said is very true. And a lot of times they're also very observant and they maybe, people like George Carlin and a lot of others that were, I don't know, if you could say kind of saw
Dark. I call it
it
dark
is dark,
humor.
but they also saw the
Dark humor.
future in a lot of different ways, right? They predicted certain things. And now it's I don't want to say it's gone to shit. I think it almost produces even better comedy because you're not allowed to say, so it's even funnier. But comedians are getting into trouble, are being banned from certain places, are being deplatformed in certain places. So it's good and it's also kind of bad right now for comedy. Yeah.
It went a little far. Like I felt like they were always like saying horrible things about the president, who I am not saying didn't earn it. It's just like I have a certain level of respect, and that bothered me because going back to the first point we were talking about, we could never talk to the judges that way. We have to show the utmost respect to our judges. We have to call them judge, deference. Physically, we could never be intimidating. We can't raise our voice, and we can literally like make beheading jokes about the president constantly on like Saturday Night
Yeah.
Live. Basically, you're all, what happened to respect for the institution? I know he doesn't show respect back. Don't get me wrong, and he should do the same. Like what happened to the respect level? It's like that was too much for me. I can do dark humor, but there are certain institutions and positions that we just don't touch, and we don't do it on like Hollywood TV. That's what we don't do, and vice versa. He needs to get off Twitter
Well,
forever.
he is
Which
now.
obviously was
Yeah.
taken care of. Like I said,
Mission done.
he asked for it, but it's like, I don't care if he asked for it. This is an example to the world. Like, what are we doing?
It's
Just a little bit.
he's got a certain negative magnetism. He's got something where
Yes,
he just makes people hate him in the most visceral way, and I
I
get it,
know.
right? And on the
I
flip
do.
side, he makes people love him and adore him, and he's got a cult following around him. But you know what? We can go on a whole tangent about
I have that effect on people. I have that same
yeah. You
effect.
have a
Like they
cult
love me or hate
following.
me. Yeah. Nobody ever goes like Marilyn who? Like there's no like lack of,
Yeah, yeah.
memory.
You evoke an
But it
emotion.
Yeah, but I don't engage in it. Like, I'm not like, yeah, F you, your kid's retarded too. Like, they say horrible stuff to me. I'm not like back at him. I'm like, I try to disarm or just
Yeah,
ignore.
and
Like,
I've
it
heard
doesn't serve
I've
anyone.
heard you speak, and I've heard you on podcasts and obviously the TED Talk. And again, like you're funny, all right? You speak your mind, and again, like I don't think there's anything controversial. And a lot of times, what you see with celebrities or pseudo celebrities or Instagram people, which I guess are celebrities now, they will say something, right? And it will be either sometimes it is true what they said, that's actually what they said, but a lot of times it's misconstrued as something else and it's taken out of
Oh God, I
context, it's
know.
edited, and then they'll go on an apology tour. And I hate that. I absolutely hate that. Like,
I
if
know.
you said something, stick to it. It's not like, oh, I just was not educated and please educate. I hate those apology tours. And I love that when a people are, and again, like not in a douchey way where like fuck other people, but like in a I know myself way. Did not mean any harm. And I'm just not going to be apologetic about what I said. And you are one of those people, and I
Or
admire
like,
that.
and just like explain it, like my commercials that are supposedly, rude to women. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are literally idiots. Listen to the words. I literally say women are wicked geniuses and men are oblivious morons. And men are like, God, you're so awesome. And chicks are like, you're so rude. I'm like, you literally have no sense of humor. Everything is a personal attack to women, and men have the best sense of humor. I'm like, I'm not saying anything bad about women other than we're conniving and we
Yeah.
plan. We're sneaky assholes and men are not paying attention. That's all I say. And men are never mad and women are always mad. I'm like, that means you're uptight. I'm like, oh, another bitter woman. Wow, how refreshing. Like, how miserable are we? My God, so I'll point that out. I'm not going to apologize for them. They're dead true. If I write a commercial, it's because 57 cases came through my office with the same set of facts. And I was like, oh, I think I'll write a commercial about this. I write it myself based on my real life. They're not
Well, that's the thing.
like,
You're not speaking in some sort of a void. You're not speaking from lack of experience. You're literally in the system, and you're seeing the facts and the stats, and you're seeing what happens to families being torn apart by these draconian rules and laws. And then you're speaking.
and women that take
Yeah.
advantage. I mean, I have 200 active cases at any given time in the firm. 200. It's not like a small population. And I see these patterns and it's horrific. And I see great dads fighting tooth and nail for their pathetic visitation or finally getting joint custody after being accused of sexual molestation that was made up 6 times. I mean, what some of these women will go to keep these amazing dads out of their great kids' lives is disgusting. Like, I wish there was a criminal component to actually, punish instead of just this civil contempt that never goes anywhere. It's really
How did we
horrific.
get here? How did we get to this point in time where dads are essentially powerless in family court and just are almost looked at as unnecessary?
I feel like it's a really old um there's an instinct in mothers, like little mama bear. Someone tries to take our cub, particularly someone that's harmed us, and we just like protect them with our life, which is a really cool quality and what you'd want in any mom. But if you don't take a step back and stop thinking with your, antiquated brain that's fight or flight, like, and realize this is not a life threat, this is just you reacting. Like, yes, he probably cheated on you. That was horribly painful. It's a huge betrayal. It isn't about your kids. It shouldn't be. And it's really hard to like suck it up. I do this for a living and I give people an example. I got divorced and my daughter was 14 months old. My ex-husband got remarried. So did I. I would go to his house and his second wife hated my face. I never met her and she literally hated me. And I have a stepson that I kept raising that was his. And he go like, Mom, why does blah, blah, blah hate you? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, when you call, she'll pick the phone up with her 2 fingers like it's this toxic dog turd. And she won't answer. She'll literally like hear my voice and carry it over to him and drop it on the couch. Like it's seriously like, plutonium and then go, it's her. Ugh. And like, I was like, I want to kill this bitch. Like, I was like, are you? And I have to leave my daughter at the house with this vicious, like, I was so mad. And then she would come out of the house and put her stupid head in my back window and kiss my baby goodbye. And I'm in the driver's seat, like, I'm going to roll the window up in her fucking neck. Like, I was like, I want to, and I'm all, stop it. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about you. Like, I have to like play that tape in my head. Like, it's not about you. It's not, she's good to your daughter. My daughter was thrilled to
Yeah.
see her giggling with joy. Like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. So I took everything I could not to kill her. And just by attrition, I kept being nice, making her casseroles. She ended up getting ill with cancer. And like, I just made every gesture. And then she came like to the table and we were great friends and got along perfectly. And then sadly, she passed away. And so, it was worth it, but oh my God. And I know how hard it is. And I like to tell that story to clients, like, trust me, I am very capable of
Yeah.
immaturity. And like, and I had every justification. She was atrocious, and I told my son, because he was like, well, why does she do that? I'm like, she's jealous, buddy. She wants to be your mom. And it feels like she doesn't have any chance because I'm in the way. I didn't birth you. So she feels like she can take over, but I won't let her. So it's not on you. And he was like, she doesn't even like me. I'm all, I know, it's really confusing. It's just a teaching moment. Like I used it as a teaching moment for myself. It takes such willpower to like stay out of the gutter. And particularly if no one joins you when you're on the high road, you're just up there by
Yeah.
yourself. You're like, this place sucks. Now, for therapy, I do say every 6 months, just jump off the high road. Just dive into the sewer because you don't want to be predictable. Like it makes people take advantage. So with kids, with other people, I like to get off the high road once every 6 months. Just go crazy on them, never in writing, never when there's a video camera going. Always whisper it so that nobody can ever testify
That's
against you.
your lawyer brain side speaking.
I'm like, do not make
Yes.
evidence, but you got to let them know you're capable. Sometimes I give hypotheticals, like to my ex-husband. I'd be like, if I wanted to be mean to you like you're mean to me, I might say, and then I say the most horrible stuff. And I go, and that would really hurt you, but I don't want to
Yeah.
hurt you. Like, oh, but it works. They're like, oh my God. And I was like, I don't want to hurt you. That's a horrible thing to say. Like, and I just said it. But just hypothetically speaking.
That should be illegal. You're taking lawyer tactics and using in your day-to-day and everyday life. That should be illegal.
I use objections on my poor kids too. I'm like, I ask them a question and they avoid. And I'm like, objection, non-responsive. And they're like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, it's a great objection. I mean, you should really, there's no better way to say it. That was non-responsive.
I'm assuming your kids don't enjoy the humor side as much as
they're tolerant. I mean, they didn't get to pick me. They're stuck. My daughter did debate for a number of years in high school. So I have a 16-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old son, and a 3-year-old just to round out the crazy. So I get quite a variety. And then I raised my stepson who's 24 and starting med school in August. So I know. So it's a big gap and a lot of like dynamics in the household, all different dads except my stepson. So it's like super
Do you think you
work study.
So you said you've been doing this for about 20 years.
Yeah.
Do you think you understand men better now than you did 20 years ago after representing, I'm assuming, thousands of guys? And maybe what are some takeaways that you think, maybe what's lost in translation sometimes between men and women that you do understand because you have worked with men for so long?
So I do think I understand men better. I like men a lot more having represented them, which is really cool, and I don't have issues with men, even though people are like, she's obviously a lesbian. Why would I represent men if I'm a lesbian? She obviously hates men. Like I help them. What? I have a great relationship with my dad. I have a great relationship with my mom. Like I have really cool parents. They're messed up like anyone and they screwed me up, but whatever, they tried really hard. They're still in my life constantly. They're great human beings. So I like men a lot more having represented them because I see their soft side. And I feel like it's really sad that men are afraid to show their soft side. They aren't taught to do it. They don't feel safe doing it. But in my office, they fall apart. They walk through the door. Like I go through more Kleenex than, like any place on the planet. Dudes cry on a dime in here, but they're so nice. Like I feel like men are really soft and there's exceptions, but they really want to support the baby mama, no matter whether she's a wife or not. They're like, I just want her to be okay. I don't want to take my kids from her. I mean, that's all I ever hear. I feel bad for her. She has a drug and alcohol problem. I don't want to punish her for it. I'm like, yeah, but you just left your kid with a heroin addict.
Yeah.
Like you need to punish her a little more than that, buddy. They're really careful and protective of the women in their lives, even at the exit. I mean, the saying goes that when women are wronged, they hate you. When men are wronged, they hate themselves.
Wow.
And it's true. They take responsibility and they pine over these psychos forever. I'm like, oh my God, if I had known that you guys were, I always felt like men didn't care. Like my ex-husband was like, bye, thanks, bye. They never let go. They're in here like, oh, she's a beautiful, amazing woman. I'm all, that chick looks like a dude. Like, what beautiful. I'm so mean. I'm like, bring me a wedding photo. There's no way she was ever attractive. I feel like I'm helping, I'm like, I know. So they always make me send love notes. They're like, can you call him and let him know that I'd really like to do counseling and send her flowers for Valentine's Day? I'm all, she said you make her want to vomit and she has a restraining order. So I'm pretty sure that's not a appropriate gesture. It's time to move on. So I just think they're sensitive and they really care about their kids. And I feel like men don't know where to go. They need direction. And if given direction, I've learned this in my own relationships long ago. If I say, hey, please take me on a date tonight, dudes are like, yeah, 9 times out of 10, they'll take you. If I don't say, and I think they're going to read my mind, 9 times out of 10, I don't go on a date. It's just a matter of like, just speak in English and be short and direct. Same thing with kids. Can you please go change our son's diaper? No, we're over here like acting like victims falling on the floor. Like he never helps. I'm like, well, you didn't ask. Like, men just need some quick direction. They're really like, men want to help. They want to like make women happy. They want to be contributors. They just don't know how. I think society shifting is making it more confusing. Now women make as much money as men, sometimes more than. So men don't understand their roles. You guys are bred to be providers from the Stone Age. And now you're not financial providers. So men don't know how to provide. They're like, what is my role? And we women don't know either. So we have to kind of figure that out together and give men a purpose. Like, if men don't feel like they're appreciated and needed on some significant level, they fall apart. They lose their masculinity. They feel lost. They feel unimportant, undervalued, alienated. So it's our job, and it's beneficial to us as a family to be like, hey, here are the ways I need you.
Yeah.
I have a game I play with my kids. If they're upset, I go, do you want me to comfort you and listen to what's going on in your life, or do you want me to distract you so you feel better? Like, I just ask point blank, and it works. And it works with wives. That's my best tip. Ask your wife, do you want me to try to solve this problem for you? Or do you want me to just hear you out and validate you by saying, what a jerk? Man, that was a crap day. Because most of the time, we just want to be validated. You try to solve our problem and we will rip your throat out.
Yeah,
So it's better to just ask.
women are, and again, like, I can only look at this from my point of view because I am a man, and women are, I was listening to, and this will hopefully back with the point that I'm trying to make. I was listening to a couples therapist the other day, and she's pretty well known. I don't remember her name, but she was saying that when she works with people who are, let's say, in their 30s and 40s, and potentially it's a second marriage, and they're looking for for a partner. She says when the men reach out and she asks, what are you guys looking for in a partner? They'll be like, we want someone who is nice, someone that will maybe take care of the kids, help around the house, be available, meaning they'll want sex, and maybe watch sports. That's about it. And then, like she says, when the women reach out,
make some dinner.
there's a laundry list, 30, 40, 50 things. She's like, look, like, you're gonna have to, this isn't a realistic list, but she says because of what society has been telling women for the last, maybe, I don't know, a couple of decades, like, oh, you should strive for the best and you deserve everything and la da da da, right? She's like, I do deserve everything, but, like, okay, you deserve everything, but are you at the point where you do deserve it? Like, are you giving enough that you should be receiving so much?
Well, and you can't get it all from your partner. I mean, that's what people mistakenly expect. I think, like you said, the list from the women. Well, the list is like housekeeper, accountant, masseuse, personal trainer, dog walker, dog poop picker upper, chef, like nanny, laundry servant. It's like, oh my God, this is your husband. He cannot, like, you wouldn't ever ask someone to apply for this job and pay him like 250 grand a year. Nobody would apply. Nobody would have the right qualifications, but you expect your husband to do all these things, and you don't tell him. God forbid you tell him what you need. No. He has to be a mind reader first and foremost. And when your mood changes, he has to do that too. I have all these women that in my divorce situations where the men are like, oh, I never could change a diaper because she told me I did it wrong every time. And I put it on backwards once and she still makes fun of me and the kid's 8. I have a case right now where the other side's trying to claim my client's an alcoholic. And on her screensaver on her telephone, when he calls, and they've been divorced 4 years, it's a picture of him with his pants around his knees throwing up. He has the stomach flu. And her poor children, who are like 9, see this picture of their dad puking every time their dad calls their mom's phone to talk to the kids. And it's her pretending he's an alcoholic. And he's like, I literally had the stomach flu. And the kid took the picture and sent it to mom saying, I'm scared. Dad's really sick. Can you come home? Because the kid's like 5. And like, dad was so debilitated, he couldn't like take care of the 5-year-old. And now she's exploiting it and making it something it's not. And it's a forever screensaver. How humiliating and horrific. Just like, we need to be a little bit nicer. We need to be a little more clear. And I'm teaching my daughter this at 16. She's like mad at her 16-year-old boyfriend. He won't take me on dates. I go, honey, he's 16. He has A, no money. B, doesn't know what a date is. C, you're his first girlfriend. What do you want for your date? Just tell him this Friday, let's go to dinner. You pick the restaurant. I'll bring my mom's credit card. Like, have fun. Just help the poor dude out. No one trained him to do dates yet. He's a little kid. You want to be his first trainer? Do it, but be kind.
Yeah.
Ask for what you want, set a date and an expectation, and bring your credit card, honey.
Were you ever offered
You know?
a TV gig, something on TV? I mean, you would it would just I would watch that show. I would watch the shit out of it.
Ah,
Yeah.
TV has been sniffing around for a few years, pre-pandemic. And so Bravo actually filmed a reality show in our office for like 3 months, which was so fun
Really?
because they were doing a comedy.
Okay.
They were not doing a dramedy, which I was ironic because I'm all, you literally make a drama out of Kim Kardashian going to the grocery store because she has no life.
Yeah, they'll just
And then you
edit
come
it with the
here,
music, the dramatic music.
yeah,
I hate it.
with like a can of
Yeah.
beans as the like, the antagonist. But I'm like, here we have nothing but drama. And they literally captured the funniest. It was so funny and good. And they ended up not airing it because they were like, oh, well, women are going to hate her and women are our bread and butter audience. I'm like,
Mhm.
you guys are literally idiots at the think tank. If they hate me, they'll watch more. That's what women do. We like to hate. It's a disturbing default of ours.
Yeah.
But
Like chicks
they
don't like
made
Kim
me,
Kardashian, right? They look
no.
at it because they kind of either envy or despise her.
Yes. Yeah, or they worship her. All of the above we're watching.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled it didn't air because it probably would have ruined my life, but it was super fun filming it. But since then, I've had some other kind of offers and then pandemic hit. And so they're just hanging out. But I wouldn't mind doing a cool show, but I've had offers to do like punchline joke shows. I'm all, okay, please don't career suicide me yet. I have to pay for a couple colleges.
Well,
Like,
what the nice thing is right now is you're not relying on anyone and anything on any studio. Like you have the power
yeah.
to just shoot something and put it on YouTube and it can be super successful, right? We
That's
don't
what
need
they
the powers
say.
that be anymore.
I know. I have some Hollywood connections. I have a best friend who's a screenwriter there. She's actually writing for The Simpsons now, which is rad.
Nice.
So I have some connections, and I just don't have the energy to be creative without someone like backing it. Because this job is like a 50-hour work, demand, and then I run a homeless girls' home in town that's for 18 to 24-year-old girls. That's like 20 more hours, and I have 3 kids that I'm trying to keep out of jail. So,
It's a full-time
life goals.
job.
I like speaking too. And so I just applied to TED to do the big TED conference. And I'm waiting to hear. It's a long shot. That's like the top speaking gig in the world. I'm some lowly nobody in Reno. And it's not about men this time. I'm trying to do a, speech on conflict resolution.
Did you get any? Because I don't know what the process is, but I'm assuming you probably hand in some sort of a first draft, and then they approve, disapprove, tell you what they like, don't like. But did you? Because I'm kind of surprised because they're fairly politically correct for the most part. So I'm kind of surprised that they let you, or if they did allow you to just speak your mind without any corrections or without any things that they wanted
Oh no.
amended.
So the TEDx is just like a franchise essentially at all the universities. And so my university here, University of Nevada, Reno is my alma mater, and that's who I did my TEDx through. But the process is super curated. And to me, like they took a lot of my personality out of my speech just because of time. And the professor that runs it here tends to be pretty conservative and careful. And so like I snuck in a like whore when I actually gave it. And I was like, he's going to kill me. And he didn't say anything. And I was like, and he didn't edit it out, shockingly. Like I called myself that. So I was shocked. But it is very curated. It's hard to talk about a complex topic like fatherlessness in 13 minutes. So that made it really important to keep tight. But the process took me about 2,000 hours to prepare that speech. And most of it was
2000.
memorization. Yes, most of it was memorization, but I went through about 17 drafts of the speech, and there was a committee of 30 to 50 people that critiqued it and made you perform it and shredded it. And women, I got in screaming fights with women in the panel
Yeah.
about how I'm saying their kids are screwed. And it was very emotional
Wow.
and cool. And so I can imagine at the TED level, it would be 10 times that. And so the TED application that I submitted is much more my voice and more controversial in the sense that it's vulgar. Like I'm basically offering to do a speech on conflict resolution called How Not to Be a Dick. And dick's an acronym. So I don't know if they'll be like, get the hell out of here. And if they do, they do. But I'm like, I don't want to do a speech that isn't my voice and spend that many hours. And you don't get paid. I mean, and I get like international mail that clouds my day in a lovely way, but it takes like a ton of time and energy that I don't want to give to something if I'm not being me. So I love the father speech. I thought it was great. TED would never have allowed that because you're right. The real TED, they don't want to hear something that specialized, that, like only appeals to one part of the population. And it would have been a mistake because look, like literally 100,000 people a week are still watching it. So it'll reach 5 million soon. I don't know how far it'll keep going, but I think it's really awesome that the message is being resonated.
2,000 hours of work is worth 5 million views and counting.
Right?
Yeah.
And I seriously was like a little bit chubby when I started too. And I was like, dude, I seriously was like, if this goes viral, I'm going to hate myself for life. So I like lost 20 pounds and I would memorize it on the Stairmaster every day. I would do like 20 lines for my 20 pounds and like put it on Facebook. Like it was super funny. Thank God, because now it's like on air and my butt is nationally viewed or internationally.
Internationally viewed. Yeah.
Whew, I had to get that baby weight off. I have a commercial where I make fun of chicks for not losing that baby weight till like 9 years after their kid's born when they're going to leave their dudes. And so in court, that is the line that makes women the maddest. It comes up. I literally had kids get beat by their mom for videotaping my commercial. And then I had to go to court after having removed the kids. And the judge is like, so why did she hit him? I'm like, my commercial. Like, how embarrassing. And then she's like, she said losing that baby weight after 9 years. I'm all, she hasn't lost the baby weight. I just like to point that out, Your Honor. Because like, if you're going to be shut up. So I was like, I better lose my baby weight before I put my big ass on screen. So.
It's hilarious. What does a woman actually have to do? So to lose a kid, right? We're saying that men, and again, like men are, we don't want to generalize. Men are not saints by a long shot, right? Men do a lot of stupid shit.
A lot of stupid. They bring the kids in here. They're like, this is the woman that's going to get you away from your psycho mom. I'm like, and now I have to kill you. Please don't bring I'm like, I'm actually a realtor, honey. Please go sit in the kid room while I kill your dad. Please stop talking crap in front of your kids.
There's a lot of dummies out there. There's a lot of dummies out there, right? And again, like, for men and women, like women are not saints, right? There's just because there's, I feel like there was a period in I don't know if this was in the 80s and 90s. I didn't grow up in the US, but I think it was around that time where there's a lot of these sitcoms that came about, right? And the husband was always this like childish, kind of dumb, kind of like goofy husband. And the wife was always this brilliant thing. And she was always like in check and she took care of the house and the kids and she knew everything. And at the end of the episode, the wife was always right. Right? Like it was like Everybody Loves Raymond, King of Queens, Home Improvement, all these.
Like Martin. Remember Martin? And she would like just reprimand him in front of all his friends all the time. And it was funny, but you're like, God, please give dudes a chance.
Exactly. And I think there was like this generation where it's solidified for them. Their men are kind of like, dummies, goofy. Mm-hmm. And the woman is like secretly running the show behind the scenes and she knows everything. And I wonder if that's, maybe now it resonates a little less because those shows don't really exist. But I think for our generation, I think that really ingrained in our culture. And I wonder if that has anything to do with how the court reacts, with how everything. And so the question that I wanted to ask was, what does a woman have to do to lose a child completely in court?
Well, let me back up and then we'll get to that question. I think the reason those comedies exist is because it's true, like you and I spoke about before, in a funny way. And I tried to explain that in my TEDx, the differences between men and women in court and the questions I have to ask my men and get them ready for compared to what they know inherently. And that was the logistic stuff, like what's the name of your kid's doctor? What grade are they in? What's the name of their teacher? Who are their best friends? And the dads cannot answer. They're like, Dah, and they look like those guys on the show. But if you ask your male clients, what's their favorite tickle spot, which by the way was in one of my drafts. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my God, you're making them sound like molesters. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. So I had to take that out. But what makes them laugh? What's their favorite sneaky snack to eat when mommy's asleep? Like what kind of superhero power would they have? What makes them scared? Dads can answer that in a heartbeat. So if they did a show like that and just showed the differences, it would be honest and cool. But instead they just exploit the one area of weakness and amplify it. So now, in answer to your question, what do women have to do to lose kids? They can't. They can't lose a kid. They can temporarily be suspended from visitation or have to have supervised visitation for extreme mental illness, extreme violence, prison time, drug and alcohol abuse. That's provable. But courts give the tools for women to earn it back. They give 1 million handicaps, 1 million. Well, if you do this, then you can have your joint custody back. Or they give them, 6 months reprimand. If a man does the same thing, they literally face losing their parental rights, period. Like that's my issue. The same set of facts are so much more harshly punished for men than women. And I do get that there's a physical difference, Men are far more physically threatening. And so that's one of the things I work on when we go into court. I'm like, please do not look at your wife. Keep your eyes on the dang ground. Do not look at the judge. Keep your shoulders hunched. Like, you are physically intimidating. You cannot say the same thing she can and it come across the same way. Like, you look aggressive when you're just hurt. She looks pathetic and victimized. Like, it's just a difference that we need to own. So some of it's fair, but some of it's just perception. And so we lawyers have to work on these sort of like perceptions. I have a client who's a big black dude with this big beard. He's the warmest, sweetest, softest human being. And he was my associate that became a judge, he was her client. And I just did a court hearing with him on Zoom. And I was like, dude, I'm texting him. I'm like, you look like the scariest man alive. Please smile. I know you're mad because the judge totally screwed him over, so he should be pissed, but you look like you're going to come through the screen and murder us all. And he's like 6'5", and he's a personal trainer for the Navy. Like, he's built like a brick shit house. I mean, but I was like, you're so scary. And I know in real life how soft and lovely and warm you are. You have to that has to come across better.
Put like a cardigan
put your
on.
Camera up. Put a bit, not a Bill Cosby sweater because he's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. A cardigan with some rats on it. Sink down in your chair. Get the camera angle so you don't look so huge. Smile, even if you're getting totally reamed by the judges. Smile. I love this. Feels great, Judge.
So that,
like, oh.
So like men. So again, like, I'm trying to like understand this because again, I've never been in court, but if
good,
and I do not.
I hope you ever go.
No, I have been in court actually a couple of times, but nothing serious. Like a couple of drug stuff and like
nothing serious.
No, nothing serious.
Some heroin.
Yeah. It's just, some drug bust in Colombia, but but if so, like you said, women, almost impossible for them to lose the custody
permanently.
Yeah,
they have to really try.
But a guy,
like, have 5 meth babies.
A guy, let's say, okay, let me describe a guy to you. All right, he is well-rounded, well-adjusted. He's got a decent job. Never hit anybody. Not his wife, not his kids. Always been nice. Not verbally abusive. I'm trying to think what else. Like, takes the kids out on like events.
I can give you a real example. The guy I spoke of. Okay. He works for the Navy. He has the highest security clearance there is. He has no criminal record to speak of, no drug and alcohol problem, super educated, has a master's degree, perfect performance in the Navy, loved his daughter to death. She's 7 years old. He ended up being relocated because of the Navy. Mom just decided to disobey the court order and cut him out of this kid's life for no apparent reason. He didn't have a fixed visitation schedule in the court order because they used to get along. So when they originally agreed, they left it up to the two of them to coordinate. So now mom has this tactical advantage. He tries on his own to file several motions from a distance to say, hey, judge, just give me a fixed visitation schedule so I can see my daughter. He doesn't do it procedurally correct because he's not a lawyer. He hires us. 2 years later, he hasn't seen his kid. We're like, oh, no big deal. We'll file a motion to set a fixed visitation schedule. We do. The wife opposes and says, my daughter's afraid of her dad. Flash forward, we're in court and the judge is treating him like a heroin dealer. He's like, sir, you may never see your daughter again. It's up to, the counselor. I'll appoint a counselor, but the counselor may very well find that you shouldn't ever see your daughter. And I'm like, excuse me, Your Honor. I keep interrupting. I'm like, why are you talking to my client this way? You're talking to him like you just caught him with like a whole, trunk full of heroin and that he feeds it to babies on the playground. Don't talk to him that way. He's a great dad and you're not removing him from this child's life. And he's like, well, maybe she doesn't want to see him. I'm like, we don't give up on 7-year-olds. She is 7. She's not 17. There's no trauma. There's no abuse. There's no reason this kid doesn't want to see her dad except mom did a parentectomy and removed him from her life unwillingly. I'm like, don't talk to him that way. And he's like, Miss York, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm like, well, I'm going to make a record and you're talking to him in a ridiculous way, And so he effectively was trying to terminate my client's parental rights for no reason. And that would never happen to a woman. It was absurd. And thank God the judge retired in December. So now we have a new judge and we have this great counselor. But meantime, I said on the record, can my client please bring a birthday present and a Christmas gift to his daughter? Her birthday, she just turned 7 in December. Mom, no problem. Guess what? They're still at my office. It's February 9th.
Wow.
Every time I reach out to her and ask her to come get the presents for her daughter, she screams at me in an email. She's a psycho. She has 5 babies from 5 daddies, and she's removed all those dads, and she just gets a boat ton of child support for all these kids. I'm like, I want to go to her house and rip that kid out of her home, put her in my car, and like never turn back. But
wow.
So that's an example. This guy is a great human being.
She's in court all day long, just with all these different fathers. Wow.
Yeah. She doesn't work. She lives off 5 child supports. She breeds well too. She picks dudes with real jobs. Like my client's child support's like $1,200 a month. for one kid. Like, she's living the dream. I don't think she does drugs, thank God. So that's the problem. I don't have dirt on her other than she brainwashes kids, but she does it so well and they're so young. I can't get that into court. And so luckily I have a counselor in place now. Luckily that judge retired because I told that client, I will appeal this for free as your Christmas present.
Wow.
Like, and it isn't lost on me that he is Black. That is a bigger issue in the epidemic of fatherlessness. And this is a really great, wonderful, amazing dad. No one's taking you from this kid, not on my dime.
Wow.
If I have to fight this till your kid's 18.
How long does
And
it
he does-
usually take? Like, how long can it take?
Well, it's because he did it himself and didn't procedurally do it well. He already took up 2 years. So this kid has not seen her father in now 3 years because we spent another year thanks to the pandemic. So courts closed, everything got pushed out. We tried to do a settlement conference first, which is normal in family court. So that delays it when mom's so unreasonable and won't even pick up a present, And so here we are finally, and the counseling is going. It's going great. He's actually seeing his daughter for the first time this week. And we all cried in the office. We were so excited. And so did he.
That's amazing.
He's the cutest, softest dude. When I called him and said, I'm doing this for free, he burst into tears and he's like, I have to call my mom. And I was like, oh, how do you not love this guy? So, it'll be a beautiful story. I will make sure of it. But what if I didn't exist?
Mm-hmm.
What if I didn't do stuff pro bono for randoms that I can afford to because I have high-end clients that cover, my overhead. Thank God.
Well, you're,
it shouldn't be like that.
That's the thing. Are you a unicorn, or are there not other male or female lawyers that kind of solely represent men in these type of situations?
Not Nevada. There are about 4 in the country that are independent that I know of. And then there's Cordell and Cordell, which is a franchise law firm in the US. And they have a myriad of offices around the country. And I believe that they mean well, but they don't because it's a franchise, they literally just hire someone and plop them in an office in Minnesota and call them a men's rights attorney. So it's hit or miss. Sometimes you get the right person who's truly passionate. That's why they applied. And sometimes you get someone just trying to make money because men are the breadwinners and they don't actually care. So it's not as clean as what I think our practices are that truly do it for the right reasons. But I don't care. I'll take it over nothing. Yeah. But there aren't that many of us. It's not politically correct. It comes with a lot of heat. I did a mean messages commercial because I get so much hate mail from women.
Your ads are great, by the way. Who writes the ads?
Me.
You?
Me, always. I write them all.
A one-stop show.
Well, and I was like, so I did a mean messages one where I read all the horrible things women say to me. And at the end, I was like, is anyone wondering why I represent men? Because they're so atrocious. I'm like, oh yeah, you girls are lovely, really soft and wonderful. I didn't do anything but represent men, and you say horrible stuff about how you hope I get murdered. I'm the reason the country's horrible. I'm like, oh, you give me a lot of credit. So it kind of helped, honestly. When I air that message, women are less apt to call. They're like, oh God, she's going to put on a commercial.
Are you immune by now? But I feel like because
pretty close.
Yeah.
I'm pretty close. I will say this though, if they mess with my kids, that was a hard area for me because some of my kids have been ostracized from certain activities because the mean mommy on the other side was my opposing client and she'll ask who my kid is and try to blacklist them from improv. Thank God my kids all have different last names than I do. So it isn't obvious right away, but as soon as someone sees me at the school because I'm really active in my kids' lives, then they're like, ugh, and so that was a little hard for me. I'll never forget my 13-year-old was 5 and he had a movie app on the cell phone, and I left him in the car for a second and just ran to the mailbox, and I come back and he goes, Mom, these 2 chicks were talking crap about you. So I videotaped him and blew him up in the video. And he has this little video and you can hear, I'm like, she's such a bitch. And then it's boosh. I'm like, it was so funny, but I was like, oh my God. And then sometimes women will come up to me in public and be like, I love you. I totally agree with what you're doing. Da, da, da. And then my kid in the background's like, wait, you like my mom?
Yeah.
That's so weird. I'm like, this is the poor things. It's like a fake celebrity, they get a lot of heat about who I am. My daughter got fake friends in debate because I judged the debate tournaments. They're like, that's your mom. Your mom was on Daniel Tosh. And so then they'll try to be your friend because of it, which sucks too. So I don't like how it affects my children sometimes, but I'm still proud of what I do. And they're resilient kids and they're smart. And my daughter wants to take over my practice someday, which is the best gift I could ever give, honestly.
Would you like other feminists to reach out? I know you probably get mostly guys at this point that reach out and want to talk, but would you like the other side to kind of reach out and have you on and talk? Not in a nasty
I don't even care if they're nasty. I don't even care if they're nasty. I can handle it. I really could give a shit. I went to the university here locally and spoke to the women's studies panel because my old professor is sociology of gender, and she had me on. She did a documentary film on women who were pardoned and found that they were liars, that most of them weren't abused and just used that excuse they could murder their husbands. And then she got blacklisted from like CAW, Committee to Aid Abused Women, and like all over the country started getting death threats. And she goes, "Oh my God, I thought you were a traitor, and now I see why you do what you do." So she brings me to the university to speak, and I got attacked so hard by those women. And it was so funny to me. I'd be like, "I'm happy to come talk to your class and explain why I do what I do." And then they just talk over me and I go, "See, students, they don't actually want you to learn both sides. They're not neutral at all. They just want to stand up and give a hate speech. Please be aware that this is your professor who's supposed to be neutral and teaching you both sides." Like I just talk over them and be all, "Here's an example of pure hatred. How unfortunate that you're in the education system." Yeah. Like I don't, it doesn't bother me. In answer to your question, I would love to. And I do get a lot of women reaching out who are lovely. I really do. I'd say 50-50 men and women, or 60-40 men and then 40% women. Women are more communicative. We just are. We like to reach out and talk to people, and men are more shy. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why 50% of the calls we get at my office for consultations and whatnot are by women. It's the new wife, it's the girlfriend, it's the mom, the aunt, the adult daughter. Like, he needs help. They'll straight make the appointment. They'll come with them to the office. You know, find me a good man, and there's still 10 good women behind him. And I get to deal with them for work. Just they're not as directly impacted. So they're not like vicious. You know, they're lovely.
It sounds like
so. Yeah. So I would love to. And I don't care if they hate me. It doesn't bother me. I get hated for a living. I'm like, you guys, if someone likes me, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, what?
Like, all right, I'll stop giving compliments then.
Yeah, it feels icky.
It's weird. I know.
That's what I tell my personal trainer who's always yelling at me. I'm like, you do know I get paid for people to hate me. Yeah. You think I give a shit when you're mad at me?
You know, there's a prevailing notion, and I think we touched on this earlier, where men, it's maybe a little bit even more like white males, are perceived to have all the advantages, right? They're the superior, sure, whatever. There's this common narrative that's going on right now. And they have all the privilege, right? I keep hearing privilege is one of the words that
Sure.
I throw up inside when I hear it. It's super annoying, because if you look at the people that are guarding this nation, right? The soldiers, if you look at the people who keep the lights on, if you look at the people who grow your food, who produce the cars, who have the hardest jobs, the coal mine, all that stuff, 99.9% is done by men. Those are not easy things, right? And then
they're not fun. They're miserable. No. And your physical health is taking a toll. Women are living longer and longer, although we have heart attacks now too, like you guys, but the stress is traumatically impactful on men's health.
Yeah.
Mental too.
Yeah.
So and here's my analogy. I have a brother who's gifted and talented. He's probably got Asperger's syndrome, frankly, but when we grew up, he was just GT. Mm-hmm. Everything came easy to him. Everything. He was so gifted in school that he'd just get a straight A in his sleep. He never learned to work. He didn't have to. And so he has no work ethic as a result of it. He can't do hard work. He'll fall apart and fall on the floor. And he's retired, by the way. He retired at 40 and just lays around all day. And he's like 47 now. And it didn't serve him. Similarly, I say, like, girls that grew up skinny and never had to learn to eat well to stay thin. If they gain weight later, they have no idea how to discipline their eating habits. Yeah. So without being disrespectful, I feel like, you know, white men have some similarity. Some things were given to them easily, and they didn't learn how to fight, and they don't know how to fight when they have to. And in family court, they have to fight, and it feels traumatic to them. Why do we have to fight? We're just trying to be in our kids' lives. That's hard enough. Let's be clear. Parenting is exhausting and expensive and hard.
So I hear.
We're just asking for the privilege to, like, be in our kids' lives and do the hard work with you. But the fight to get there feels completely overwhelming and defeating, because they aren't trained to fight for other things that, say, immigrant might have to. And so there's a disadvantage, and people don't realize that they don't have the wiring and they don't understand it. It just feels defeating. And so they don't fight, and therefore kids lose. That's all. It shouldn't be a fight. And it isn't under the law now like it was. But again, socially, the statistics are getting worse. 50% of kids are born out of wedlock in the US now.
Wow.
Those are the dads that aren't present. 50% of marriages end in divorce. Those are the two arenas that cause fatherlessness the most. And yet the laws are improving and fatherlessness grows. So socially, there's a problem, like you said.
Yeah.
It's how men are perceived. It's how men are educated. I'm the one that has to tell my clients, you're important in your kid's life. Not important, crucial. It's always a shock. I give them the statistics. They're shocked. No one's telling people that they matter.
I was shocked.
And that, That's what I'm saying. I was shocked, and I know what my dad means to me.
Yeah.
And then there's, Dr. Warren Farrell is a brilliant psychologist who wrote a book called A Boy Crisis. He explained to me, I've gotten to know him through my work, and it's amazing, but he explained to me that women are responsible for children having dreams. Men are responsible for children achieving dreams. Men teach discipline and delayed gratification, and women teach the dreams. So the combination is amazing. Yeah. Without one, the other doesn't happen. And that's just a psychological phenomenon that's true by gender. I don't know what the same sex parenting does for the statistics, as people ask me. There haven't been enough studies, and I hope that, I wonder what 2 dads raising a kid will look like versus 2 moms raising a kid. We just don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know yet, and God bless them. I hope those kids turn out great too. And I think 2-parent households are probably stronger than 1 parent, regardless of gender. But I don't know the answer, and people ask. I just want kids to be as well as they can, and that's what we all should want. I mean, as a society, period. Whether we have kids or not.
Yeah.
To have a healthy society, we need to create healthy families.
And a healthy place to have conversations and not shut people down, people who have differing ideas or different, whatever it is. It's always better to have open conversation, open dialogue, let the best ideas surface to the top, hopefully.
And just be kind, or
nice.
Consider another point of view, validate it. Yeah. Don't, that's what I'm trying to teach in the conflict resolution speech, is that people there's so many bad habits that we all learned. And the courts are always frustrated, how do we get people to follow court orders? I'm like, has anyone taught conflict resolution? No, we're just going to punish them and put them in jail. Yeah. They had bad parents. We have bad parents. We are bad parents. We don't teach it. The school's not teaching it. None of our professional, licenses require it. I am an attorney, for God's sakes. We do conflict for a living, and we are not taught conflict resolution. It's not part of our license. It's not part of law school. They teach us how to debate in a courtroom, but not actually resolve a conflict. They don't teach settlement at all in law school. When I went, I was like, good job. Well done. It's pathetic. You have to actually take a mediation course if you want to on your own. Okay. Yeah. So we're screwing up. We are screwing up royally, and then being surprised that people aren't getting along. Jesus.
I think that would be, we're living in an age now where you're having Twitter wars, and people are, I don't know, they're fighting on Clubhouse.
Cyber Tiger?
Yeah, exactly.
Cyber Tiger. We call it Paper Tiger for lawyers. I'm like, I'm a Paper Tiger right now. I wrote a tough guy letter.
Twitter.
I'm a Cyber Tiger.
Twitter thugs, whatever it's called. Yeah, the keyboard thugs. But we're losing nuance. We're losing the ability to have what we're having right now, even though we probably agree on a lot of stuff. But if you do not agree with someone and you go and you lash out on Twitter or Reddit, or it's anonymous, it doesn't have any real implications. You can say whatever you want. You're not going to say that stuff in real life to someone, for the most part, because you're going to get punched.
Get punched.
Yeah. It's like Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. And it's true, right? You're just not going to do that. So
and hopefully empathy kicks in. We say punch, but that's the violent version. Yeah. If I see someone's face cringe because I hurt them, or they get defeated, their head drops and they look sad, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I react to their, it's mirror neurons. I'm like, oh my God, I need to back up. I'm upsetting this person.
Yeah.
So that's what
the worst
we miss.
thing in the world. 2 guys, I'm not saying
I don't care.
Hurt someone.
I wish I could punch. No,
You can punch. You can punch.
I wish I could do it well. I had an attorney that was super bullying once, and he's screaming at me. I'm 8 months pregnant. I bring my guy friend who's a lawyer with me for a different reason. And he's 6'5", and he goes, "What the F are you doing, man? Where I grew up, that's punch and talk." And he just shoved the guy back onto his ass on the front courthouse steps. And
really?
I was like, "You are my hero." I was like, I want to throw someone on their ass.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And he shut up, because I'm like, the way he was talking was not lawyer speak. I'm not going to tell. I'm bailiff. You just have to throw someone on their ass sometimes in the courthouse.
It's unfortunate, but I had I lived in New York for a long time, and I had these horrific neighbors. And one time I was so close to punching one of them. And just for background, I've been doing, I was an amateur fighter. I have some background. I know how to throw
a punch.
Yeah, I know how to throw a punch, right? And I just felt like if I were to even throw a half a punch, this guy would call the police right away. And back home, that's not something I could punch someone if, not that I want to, but if something happened, I could.
It's a good skill to have.
It would get resolved on the spot. I think like you said, I think sometimes when you see someone being maybe bullied or you feel like you hurt someone's feelings, that's a much worse feeling than just getting punched.
If you have a soul, this guy has no soul.
That's a
He's
problem.
always screaming F you in my face. He's always grabbing my legs in the courthouse hallway and like getting in my face, which is insane. I'm like, it doesn't intimidate me. I actually laugh at him and it makes him more mad.
Yeah.
But, it's like so inappropriate. Like, and I tell the bailiff and they don't give a shit. I tell the judge and he doesn't do anything. He's like, I didn't see it. It didn't happen in front of me. I'm like, if I could just punch him, I don't care if he calls the police. If you're a lawyer, you make sure no one's watching and then you deny it.
No guy is going to call the police over a girl, or maybe, I don't know.
I don't care if he does. Like, I don't have a criminal record. I'll figure my way out of it.
punch your way out of jail. You'll be fine.
He also touched me first. I'm like, no, you don't get to touch a woman and then expect me not to push you back. So,
no,
you just got to know a couple rules, but I wish I could punch like you. My dad tried to raise me in like a karate environment. I'm super uncoordinated. Turns out I just talk my way out of most things and it works better for me so far.
Ask your personal trainer to bring some mitts next time, teach you the 1-2s. You'll be fine.
That's what he's like. Don't you want to just punch something? I go, I actually want to rock in a corner and suck my thumb. Like all I do is fight. When I get here, I'm like, I want my mom.
I need some
no
yoga.
More fights.
Yeah,
no more fights.
So one last thing. I remember this is one of those stats that you said that just kind of blew my mind. I think I heard this you say it on one of the podcasts. Women, right? They get pregnant, they can have the baby, and never tell the father about it. I don't know if this is true for every state, but that was a mind-blowing thing that because essentially that's kind of kidnapping.
That's absolutely kidnapping. It's like the most effective kidnapping. It's an entire life of kidnapping.
Yeah.
Sometimes kidnappers, you actually get your kid for the first 7 years and then lose them. This one, you deprive them entirely and your child of a parent. So I'm aware of no state that criminalizes that. I looked pretty hard when I did my talk. I believe it's a nationwide truth that a woman can get pregnant and not tell the father.
Wow.
And literally mark unknown on the birth certificate and go through a lifetime without the father being aware. And older generations are like, how's that possible? I'm like, it's called a one-night stand, or it's called a 10-month stand, but you get pregnant and you disappear on them. And with the transient world that we live in, people move all the time. It's particularly easy if she moves and goes back to where her parents live, which happens a lot for the support. She's in a different state. She blocks him on social media. How would he ever know? And then by the time 3 years goes by, even if he saw her with a kid, he wouldn't be like, I think that's my kid. I even had a client raising his own kid, not knowing. He had a friend with benefits and they occasionally had casual sex. She ended up getting pregnant, but she slept with 3 or 4 dudes and they ended up being roommates 4 years later and the kid was in the house. No idea it was his kid. And then at some point she decided she needed some back child support and she sued and she named him as a potential father. And he's like, wait, what?
Jesus.
So then we found out it's his kid. And then she said he shouldn't have anything but supervised visitation. And he's like, I literally raised my own son for 2 years and didn't know it was my kid. And you had no care in the world. Now that we know it's my kid and you want 4 years of back support, now I need supervised visitation. I was just like,
that's wild.
Yeah, it's like crazy. There's such a power in it. It's so sad and horrific. You want to hear it. To me, it's one of the biggest tragedies. Or listing the wrong dad. That's as bad. And these guys have no idea. I have plenty of married clients who raised their kid that isn't theirs because she cheated, didn't tell him. He had no idea. The kid's 13. And I'm like, hey, is there a chance that isn't your kid? Because something comes up. And he's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, why don't you send their toothbrush into this little mail-in place? Let's find out. And it's not their kid. And they're like, I'm not going to tell anyone. I have one of them that never said no word because he's all, as far as I'm concerned, that's my daughter. I think I know who the dad is and he's not a good human and he doesn't live here anymore and she doesn't need to know. And I was like, it's his call. I can't legally force that. And so I just let him make the call. And like, how horrible, Wow. I think it should be a felony. It should be felony kidnapping. It should also be felony fraud. Like we hold the key and then women get offended all the time. God forbid you say like, I'm not sure I'm the dad. You're calling me a whore?
Yeah.
Now you're a total monster.
There's no good way to do that.
I know. That's why I say send the toothbrush in. Don't even mention it.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to. There's no reason to have a conversation. But I swear to God, the women that get the most offensive are the guilty ones. And, each several times I'm like, you are apparently because that's not his kid, ding dong.
Yeah.
So those are lovely moments. I had a principal of a high school here. I had to test like 6 dudes. And I was like, and then I ended up suing her in small claims court for one dude because she claimed was the father for attorney's fees. Because there's no case. If it's not his kid, I don't have a vehicle to sue her in. So I had to sue her in small claims because I was so pissed because he came back from Japan to raise a kid and she let him have the kid for 8 months because the DNA test got lost. Took 8 months to figure out it's not his kid. And we were like, oh crap. And then he's all, can I say goodbye? And she's like, nope, not your kid. I'm like, oh,
Do you
like
know, are there other countries where it's better or maybe
uh,
worse?
I feel like it's worse in all the countries that are reaching
Really?
out to me. It's like dating. You know, women, American women are always whining. I'm like, oh, girl, go to Russia. Like
Yeah.
we have it so good.
Yeah.
You know,
Unless
we
you're into
are the
that.
most. Yeah, true. You want to be subservient. We are so advanced, frankly, socially with regard to fathers and with regard to dating and women's rights and equality and even racially, as sad as it is, we're way ahead of a lot of countries.
Way, way
I
ahead.
am I am certain there's countries that have it figured out better than us. I just don't. They don't contact me because they're probably like, "How sad."
Yeah.
Uh, Here's a
That's
weird
American.
example. When I was pregnant, I went to Dominica. It's an undeveloped island in the Caribbean with my husband. And when I landed, some woman that was there was like, "Oh, you're pregnant? Who's the daddy?" And I was like, my husband. And they were like, "You're married?" Like, oh. And she was like, "And he's the dad?" Like, and my husband was like, "I feel like punching her. Like she's calling you a hooker." And I was like, "Dude, just chill." So then it happened 2 or 3 more times in the first hour of being there. And I was like, wait, there's a cultural background here that we need to get to the bottom of. So then I met up with the medicine man of the island. He gave me a tour of the island and showed me where all his babies are. He was like, I have a kid here, I have a kid here, I have a kid here. I'm married to her. Like it's a swinger island, basically.
Nice.
And
You
and
heard it.
I
You
don't.
heard it here first, guys. Just that's
It's
the
a
place to
swinger
go.
island.
That's the place to
Like
go.
the women procreate freely, the men do. They don't usually marry, but if they do, it doesn't mean they can't have sex and have babies with someone else. He visits all his kids. He knew exactly where their homes were. They all share food and money as a communal island. And like to me, it's like an interesting concept. I'm like, is it working? I mean, he seems super happy and
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's a much different culture than ours. And so
And it's
there are
tiny.
cultures. Yeah, and they valued him. I mean, he was definitely valued, and there were other men living in the house with his children. He wasn't threatened by them. They all worked together to raise these kids. I mean, it was a cool concept, you know. And I bet you they value fathers there. I got no impression that men weren't revered just like women.
Hmm.
You know, they felt very equal. I spent 10 days there and watched really carefully because it's just one of the things I find interesting. And I found it to be really like evolved. Frankly, I mean, I'm not saying it would work here and we'd all have
No,
AIDS and be dead in a week, but
it would not work
you know,
here.
it was really cool.
Yeah.
So there are cultures that I am certain have a different system and a much different style that value parents in different ways than we American or traditional, worlds do.
Well,
And I
traveling
hope it's working.
traveling in general does an amazing thing. Like if you grew up in a certain place your whole life, right, and you ate the same food and you were interacting with the same people, you get a sense that that is the entire world. Like you're like, yeah, this is how it is everywhere else, and this is how people interact. Just as an example, here in the U.S., when you meet someone, like one of the first questions is, "So, what do you do?" That's
I
just
know.
standard, right? That is not standard everywhere else. There are places where I know from back home, like I can meet someone many, many times, never even ask them what they do. It's not an important thing. You first get to know the guy or girl, and after a while, you're like, oh yeah, what do you do? And then, okay, fine. Like at that point, I don't care if you're a window cleaner or like you trade stock. It doesn't really matter. Like you're a cool person and I like you. So there's many different things that when you travel, you're like, oh, okay, like people do it very differently here. Maybe this is something I should
That's
adopt. Maybe I should look into that.
I would love to do a TV show that's sort of Anthony Bourdain style, where I go all over the world and do an anthropological deep dive into their culture for relationships and parenting. I think there's
I
so
would
much
watch
for us
that.
to learn. I think it'd be super cool and funny and like quirky from a dumb American that's like, wait, what? I do it as a hobby. So like I travel quite a bit pre-pandemic. And whenever I'm somewhere, I'm like, hey, what's your policy on cheating? Like I've been to Chile and Argentina and like I'm always asking them, you guys do internet dating? You guys have sex before marriage? Does she cheat? Are dudes allowed to cheat? Like you guys have open marriages? Like who's rearing the kids? Who's the breadwinner? And the answers are fascinating. And there's a huge array of differences. Like I said in Dominica, it's like, I had no idea. And meantime, my husband's getting all pissed because he thinks they're like, insulting my purity, which
Yeah,
doesn't exist.
yeah.
Dude, you're my third husband. So heads up, you're defending the wrong girl. But God bless that cowboy. What a stud. So
Uh, like I said, I would watch that show. I would watch any show.
it'd be great.
I would watch it.
I think it'd be so interesting. I think we could learn so much.
Netflix. Looking.
Right?
That's all I'm
Come
saying.
on.
All right. I know you got to go, but I'll just maybe if there are some tips based on your vast experience for us men who are some of us are dummies, and some of us are maybe not. Like you said, women are maybe they're planning things, they're working. We're kind of
inexperienced, just inexperienced.
We're just kind of moving with the moment. We're not really thinking too much into the future. We think we're coasting. We think everything is fine. What are some tips for guys that do find themselves in these type of predicaments? Like, what should they do? What shouldn't they do? Just maybe one or two tips.
Well, the first one would be pay attention, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Men are oblivious. You guys often find out late. I can't tell you how many guys. So 90% of divorces are filed by women.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so guys are like, I was totally blindsided. I'm like, no man was blindsided. I don't know one woman that hasn't made 57 threats before she actually did it.
Yeah.
And so men just get complacent and thinking it's just a threat. She doesn't mean it. What's behind the threat? Is she very serious and unhappy? Like, work on your marriage. I don't want to see you. I have too much business. I'm tired. Work on your damn relationship, both of you. This is not just men. Like, what can say, okay, you want to leave? Why? Why are you unhappy? What can we do? Let's work on it. I say it all the time. I have guys sitting here. I go, when's the last time you put any effort in making your wife happy? They can't remember. 10 years ago. I'm like, if you did that at work, you'd be fired in a week.
Yeah.
Like, what makes you think she didn't fire you? Of course she fired you. And vice versa. Again, this is genderless. So A, put the work in before you get divorced. B, pay attention. If she lost a bunch of baby weight after 9 years, or she got a boob job suddenly and she didn't used to care about her looks, she's leaving you. It's not for you, dude. Like, look at your checkbook every now and again, because so many couples rely on one party to pay the bills. And usually it's the woman, I feel like, and they start spending all the money, or it starts disappearing, or they start stockpiling it, or their spending habits change. And you're suddenly like $200,000 in credit card debt and you didn't even know she had a P.O. box. Start opening some mail. Ask her for the online password and just look once a year. Just audit your life. Like, you cannot live in ignorance and expect things to work out. And if you find out she's a great lady, take her to dinner, damn it. Buy her some flowers. Like, you're the best household bookkeeper. Don't call her that. It's offensive. But, like, be grateful. But pay attention. Don't expect you can't be a boss at work and never ask your employees what they're doing and expect it to go well. You can't be an absentee husband or wife either. So, and then if it's too late, if you start sniffing around, go get legal advice. Just get some legal advice. You don't have to hire a lawyer, but you need to consult with one and get advice and follow it. Don't be an asshole. Like, actually ask a question and listen to the advice. We really are trying to protect you. And, we'll say things like, please don't make evidence. Don't send texts that are like, you stupid hooker. I don't want exhibit A through D in texts. And then you're wondering why you were restrained from your kids. You just threatened to kill her and her boyfriend. Like, don't do that stuff in writing. Yeah. Take a deep breath, impulse control, and then take care of yourself. I mean, men are not taught, humans aren't taught to take care of themselves, but especially men. Take care of yourself. Get a network of support. Don't turn to drugs and alcohol to numb the pain. It'll make your life worse. Get a counselor in place. Get a good group of guy support friends that you can bounce ideas off of. Vent like women do to someone safe and close to you. Don't put it on social media. That's not actually what I meant. Just take care of yourself. Sleep regularly. Eat. Don't waste away. So don't let disease take over. If you have like a high blood pressure condition and you're like, I'm not taking my meds, just don't self-destruct. It doesn't help. And be ready for like a long fight. I mean, men come in here and they think, okay, this will be done in like a month. I'm like, it's 6 months. It's 6 months. And it's a 6-month roller coaster of emotion. Even if the divorce is fast, because sometimes we're lucky, you still go through the 6-month roller coaster of emotion. It's a huge transition. If you've been married 20 years, my God, everything's different. It's like a death. And so you have to really give yourself grace and let yourself grieve and be honest with how painful it is. But you will come out the other side, and man, you'll be grinning ear to ear. That's all I see is rebirth. It's like a butterfly factory in here. These dudes come in and they're so happy. They're like, oh my God, I don't know what I was thinking. I should have left her ass 10 years ago. I'm like, I know, it's so good. Like, the new love's so good. Parenting without being micromanaged by Gestapo is so good. There's so much good in divorce. Like, be prepared for the thrill, baby, because it's got a lot of highs. It really does. Those
Marilyn,
are my tips.
This was probably the most fun I've had in a podcast.
Oh yeah, because I bet you talk to some cool people. So
I mean, I'm about 80 episodes deep at this point, and I've never had so much fun. This was a blast.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
It was great. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, where can people find you? Where are the best places? What are the links? I will make sure to put everything in the show notes as well.
My website's easiest. It's just MarilynYork.com. And then you can find me on YouTube. You can watch my TEDx on YouTube and all my crazy commercials. Daniel Tosh, my big episode, my web redemption with him, is on YouTube. It's funny. And it's funny because I didn't write it. I did answer his questions candidly. It's so funny. I almost cried. I laughed so hard when they were filming me and they're like, Marilyn, quiet on the set. I'm like, I'm not an actress. Don't reprimand me. I'm reading the craziest crap off a teleprompter. Like, this is so funny. I was like, oh, sorry. I'll get back in character. The best part was Daniel Tosh's fake wife on it was like, so are you really Marilyn York? Or are you just playing her? I was like, wait, what? She was like, oh, I studied you to get ready for my character. I was like, I'm a fake, like, important person. Yeah. It was so funny. I was like, no, I'm really her.
The funny part is I never even heard of him. I found about him through you.
Yes, he's funny. He is funny. He's got great writers. They are funny, but yeah. So, well, you're welcome. He's really 19-year-old boy material. When they called me to go on it, I was like, he's not that funny, all snotty. And they were like, well, would you go on him? I don't know. I'm kind of chubby right now. How tall is he? And they're like, he's like 6'5". I go, it'll even out. Cool. Yeah. It's like close enough. One Direction. So that's my criteria for being on TV. Like, I'm a little fat. Is he tall?
All right. So I know you got to go. And like I said, a blast. Guys, go check out all the links. I'll make sure to put everything in the show notes. This was a lot of fun, Marilyn. Thank you so much for doing this. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
You too.